The morning sun glinted off the polished deck of the Aurora Dream, one of the most luxurious yachts cruising the Caribbean waters. James Harrison, a 45-year-old tech millionaire, stood at the bow, his weathered face betraying the emptiness he felt despite his wealth. The gentle breeze carried the salt spray across his face, but even the perfect weather couldn't lift his spirits. "Mr. Harrison," called out Marcus, one of the crew members, his voice unusually excited. "Sir, you need to see this." James turned reluctantly, expecting another trivial matter that required his attention. Instead, he witnessed something extraordinary. A bottlenose dolphin was circling the yacht, repeatedly diving and surfacing, clearly trying to draw attention to itself. But it wasn't the dolphin's presence that caught James's eye. It was the object in its mouth. The creature was carrying something that gleamed in the morning sun. "Is that—" James squinted, stepping closer to the railing. "It looks like a camera, sir," Marcus confirmed, equally puzzled. The dolphin approached the yacht's side, where the swimming platform descended to water level. With what seemed like deliberate care, the marine mammal deposited its find on the platform before backing away, its intelligent eyes fixed on the humans above. Marcus quickly retrieved the object, a high-end waterproof camera, its black casing scratched but intact. The dolphin lingered nearby, performing a series of clicks and whistles before gracefully disappearing beneath the waves. "It's still working," Marcus announced, examining the device. The waterproof seal held. James took the camera, turning it over in his hands. It was an expensive model, the kind used by professional photographers and serious enthusiasts. The memory card was still inside, protected from the ocean's destructive touch. "Let's see what's on it," James said. His curiosity piqued for the first time in months. They connected the camera to the yacht's entertainment system, and the large screen came to life with the first image. James felt his breath catch in his throat. The photograph showed a young woman, perhaps in her early 30s, with striking green eyes and a warm smile. She was on a boat, smaller than his yacht, her hair whipping in the wind as she adjusted her camera settings. Something about her expression, the way she held herself, stirred a memory he'd long tried to suppress. The next photo showed the same woman photographing a pod of dolphins, her camera pointed toward the water, as the magnificent creatures leaped through the air. The timestamp indicated these photos were taken just 3 days ago. "She looks like—" Marcus started to say, then stopped himself, glancing uncertainly at his employer. "Like Sarah," James finished, his voice barely a whisper. "She looks just like Sarah." Sarah, his sister, lost at sea 5 years ago during a photography expedition. Her body was never found, leaving James with a void that all his wealth couldn't fill. The resemblance between her and the woman in the photos was uncanny, but James knew it couldn't be her. He'd spent millions on search and rescue efforts, hired private investigators, and eventually had to accept that Sarah was gone. As they scrolled through more photos, James's hands began to shake. The images told the story of a wildlife photographer documenting marine life, each shot more beautiful than the last. But it was the final sequence of photos that made his blood run cold. The last few images showed a brewing storm, angry clouds gathering over choppy waters. Then came photos of massive waves crashing over the boat's bow. The final image was tilted, as if taken in panic, a wall of water approaching the small vessel. "Marcus," James's voice was urgent now. "When was the last major storm in this area?" 3 days ago, sir. It hit about 50 miles east of our current position." James studied the timestamp on the final photo. It matched. This camera had captured the moments leading up to what must have been a catastrophic encounter with that same storm. "We need to find her," James declared, his earlier lethargy replaced with fierce determination. "If there's any chance she's alive—" He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. The memory of failing to find Sarah drove him now. This time, someone might still have a chance. "So the photos might contain GPS data," Marcus suggested, "already working on extracting the information, and we can calculate the likely drift patterns from the storm's location." James nodded, his mind racing. "Alert the Coast Guard. I want every available boat in the area searching. And get me a list of all reported missing persons in the past 3 days, specifically any wildlife photographers or marine researchers." As the crew sprang into action, James remained transfixed by the photo of the woman with the green eyes. The Dolphin's deliberate delivery of the camera couldn't have been mere coincidence. These intelligent creatures were known to help humans in distress, and now one had possibly given them the key to saving a life. The yacht's engines rumbled to life, and James felt a surge of purpose he hadn't experienced since Sarah's disappearance. Whether it was the universe offering him a chance at redemption or simply random chance, he knew he had to find this woman. As the Aurora Dream turned east, cutting through the crystal waters, James whispered a silent thank you to the Dolphin that had chosen his yacht, of all vessels, to deliver its message. The day had started like any other, but now he stood at the beginning of what could be either another heartbreak or a miracle. The search was on, and James Harrison, the man who had everything except what mattered most, finally had something worth fighting for again. The search area expanded as the Aurora Dream cut through the waves, its powerful engines pushing against the Caribbean current. James hadn't left the bridge for hours, his eyes fixed on the horizon, while the crew coordinated with other vessels and the Coast Guard. The woman's camera had become his obsession, each photo scrutinized for clues. "Sir," Marcus approached with a tablet, "we've identified her. Her name is Emily Chen, a marine wildlife photographer for National Geographic. She was documenting dolphin migration patterns when she went missing during the storm." James studied Emily's profile, award-winning photographs, respected in her field, known for her dedication to marine life conservation, just like Sarah had been. "We've also found something else in the camera's memory card," Marcus continued, his voice careful. "There's a video. It was taken right before—" James took the tablet, his fingers trembling slightly as he pressed play. Emily's face filled the screen, the wind whipping her hair as she spoke into the camera. "The storm's getting worse," she shouted over the wind. "If anyone finds this—" Her voice cracked. "My research is in the waterproof case. It's marked with fluorescent orange tape. Please make sure it reaches Dr. Martinez at the Marine Research Center. And if something happens—" She paused, fighting emotion. "Tell my brother Daniel I'm sorry. I should have listened." The video ended abruptly as a massive wave struck her boat. James felt his chest tighten. The parallels to Sarah's last journey were almost too much to bear. "Mr. Harrison," a crew member burst into the bridge. "Coast Guard spotted something 2 miles east, orange marker buoy." James rushed to the deck, grabbing his binoculars. Through the lens, he could see it, a fluorescent orange object bobbing in the waves. As they drew closer, his heart raced. It was a research case, exactly as Emily had described in her video, but it wasn't alone. Surrounding the case were dolphins, at least 7 of them, swimming in a tight circle around it. And there, among them, James recognized the same dolphin that had brought them the camera, identifiable by a distinctive marking on its dorsal fin. "They're protecting it," Marcus whispered in awe, "just like they protected the camera." As the yacht approached, the dolphins parted, allowing the crew to retrieve the case. Inside, they found Emily's research materials, perfectly preserved, detailed notes, hard drives, and more memory cards. But there was something else, something that made James's blood run cold. A journal, its pages filled with Emily's handwriting. The last entry was dated 3 days ago, just before the storm. Daniel was right about the patterns. These dolphins, they're not just migrating. They're searching for something. The way they communicate, the locations they return to. I've never seen anything like it. And that female with the marked fin, she's the key to everything. I have to follow them, even with the storm coming. I'm so close to understanding. James looked up from the journal to see the dolphin still circling the yacht. The one with the marked fin, the same one that had brought them the camera, breached the water, performing a series of clicks and whistles that seemed almost urgent. "They want us to follow them," James said, a certainty settling in his gut. "Just like they led us to the case." Marcus looked skeptical. "Sir, with all due respect—" "Plot their course," James interrupted. "Every appearance, every sighting. Emily's notes might tell us where they're leading us." As the crew pored over Emily's research, a pattern emerged. The dolphins weren't random in their movements. They were following a specific route, one that Emily had been tracking for weeks. And according to her notes, it led to something she called the meeting point, coordinates for a location just beyond the storm's path. James made his decision. "Take us there." The sun was setting when they reached the coordinates. The sea was calm here, almost unnaturally so. The dolphins, which had followed them the entire way, suddenly became excited, their clicks and whistles increasing in intensity. Then they saw it, a small life raft, partially deflated but still afloat, drifting in the gentle current. And inside, unconscious but breathing, was Emily Chen. The rescue happened in a blur. Emily was quickly brought aboard, suffering from dehydration and exposure but alive. The dolphins remained nearby, their mission seemingly accomplished, with the marked female watching intently as Emily was carried to the medical bay. As the ship's doctor tended to Emily, James stood at the window, watching the pod of dolphins slowly swim away. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story, something in Emily's research, something about these remarkable creatures and their seemingly impossible behavior. His satellite phone rang, breaking his reverie. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. "Mr. Harrison?" A man's voice, tight with emotion. "This is Daniel Chen. The Coast Guard told me you found my sister. She's alive," James assured him. "But there's something you should know about how we found her, about the dolphins she was studying." There was a long pause on the other end. When Daniel spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. "Did you see one with a marked fin?" James felt a chill run down his spine. "Yes, it's the one that led us to her." "Mr. Harrison," Daniel's voice was urgent now, "there's something you need to know about that dolphin. Something Emily and I discovered. It's about your sister Sarah." James sat in his yacht's study, his hands gripping the satellite phone as Daniel Chen's words sank in. The late evening sun cast long shadows across the polished wood surfaces, making the moment feel even more surreal. 5 years ago, Daniel continued, his voice steady but strained, Emily started tracking unusual dolphin behavior in the Caribbean. She noticed something extraordinary, pods returning to the same locations where people had been lost at sea, sometimes years after the incidents. James leaned forward, his heart pounding. "What are you saying?" "The dolphin with the marked fin. Emily found records of it being in the same area where Sarah disappeared. She has photos from that time, Sarah's last known location. The same dolphin appears in them." Before James could process this information, there was a commotion outside the study. Emily had regained consciousness. He found her sitting up in the medical bay, still weak but alert. Her green eyes, so similar to Sarah's, focused on him immediately. "You're James Harrison," she said, her voice hoarse. "I'm Sarah's brother. How did you know?" Emily gestured weakly to her recovered research case. "Third folder, blue tab. You need to see it." James retrieved the folder with trembling hands. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. But these weren't recent. The timestamps showed they were from 5 years ago, taken the same day Sarah disappeared. "I've been following their patterns," Emily explained, watching James flip through the photos. "These dolphins, they remember. They return to places where they've encountered humans in distress. It's not just random behavior. They're creating maps, marking locations." The photographs showed the marked dolphin, looking exactly the same as it did now, near a boat that made James's breath catch. It was Sarah's vessel, captured in her final known location. "But why?" James asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Why would they return?" "Because they're trying to tell us something," Emily said, sitting up straighter despite her exhaustion. "Look at the last photo." James turned to the final image in the folder. It showed an underwater rock formation, barely visible beneath the waves. And there, caught in the rocks, was something that made his heart stop. A piece of equipment, clearly marked with Sarah's distinctive red diving flag. "I found this location using the dolphins' migration patterns," Emily explained. "They kept returning to it. That's what I was trying to document when the storm hit. Your sister's last dive site. It's not where everyone thought it was. The current must have carried her boat away after..." She didn't need to finish. James understood. For 5 years, they'd been searching in the wrong place. "The coordinates," he said urgently. "Do you have them?" Emily nodded. "In my research notes. But Mr. Harrison, the site is deep. It's in a trench that's rarely accessible due to currents. I was waiting for the right conditions to organize a proper dive team." James stood up. Decision made. "I have a team. The best deep-sea recovery experts money can buy. They can be here in hours. Wait. Emily grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong for someone who'd just been rescued. There's more you need to know. The dolphin with the marked fin. We've found evidence that it's part of a pod that has been documented helping humans for over 20 years. They're known to local fishermen as the Guardians. James sank back into his chair. That's why it brought us your camera, and led us to you. Emily nodded. They're not just random acts. These dolphins, they remember faces, locations, patterns. They recognize boats, equipment. When I was researching Sarah's disappearance, this pod started following me. They were trying to show me something. Before she could continue, Marcus appeared at the door. Mr. Harrison, the weather report you requested. There's a 3-day window of calm seas forecasted. After that, conditions will make deep diving impossible for weeks. James looked at Emily. She understood the unspoken question. I'm going with you, she said firmly. These dolphins trust me. They've been trying to communicate something about this location for years. I need to see this through. You nearly died 3 days ago, James protested. And they saved my life, Emily countered. Just like they tried to help Sarah, we owe it to them and to her to understand why they've been guiding us here. James studied her face, seeing the same determination he'd often seen in Sarah's eyes. He knew there would be no talking her out of it. The dive team will be here by morning, he said finally. But first, I need to know everything. Every detail about these dolphins, about their patterns, about what you've discovered. No more mysteries. Emily nodded, reaching for her research case. It started 5 years ago, when I first heard about Sarah's disappearance. I was documenting dolphin behavior in the area when I noticed something strange about their movements. As Emily began her explanation, the marked dolphin breached the water outside the yacht's window, its distinctive fin catching the last rays of the setting sun. James couldn't shake the feeling that everything, finding Emily's camera, the rescue, the discovery of Sarah's dive site, was leading to something bigger than any of them could imagine. But what they would find in the depths of the Caribbean Sea would challenge everything they thought they knew about the connection between humans and these remarkable marine creatures. Dawn broke over the Caribbean Sea as the deep-sea recovery team's equipment was loaded onto the Aurora Dream. James watched the methodical preparation, his mind racing with possibilities. The marked dolphin and its pod remained nearby, their presence a constant reminder of why they were here. Emily, though still recovering, insisted on helping coordinate the dive plan. Her intimate knowledge of the area and the dolphins' behavior had become invaluable. The trench is about 200 feet deep, she explained, pointing to sonar maps spread across the yacht's planning table. But there's a narrow window where the currents settle enough to make a safe descent. Robert Torres, the lead diver, studied the charts with practiced eyes. These rock formations could be treacherous. We'll need to anchor here, he pointed to a spot near the trench's edge, and deploy ROVs first to survey the area. As the team made final preparations, James noticed Emily standing at the rail, watching the marked dolphin. Her expression was troubled. "What aren't you telling me?" he asked, joining her. Emily hesitated. "The local fishermen, they have stories about this trench. They say the currents create a kind of underwater vault. Things that get trapped down there stay preserved, protected from the usual deterioration. You think that's why the dolphins keep returning?" "I think they're trying to show us something specific," Emily replied. "Something they couldn't bring to the surface themselves." The dive team entered the water shortly after noon. 2 ROVs descended first, their cameras feeding live images to screens set up in the yacht's main salon. James, Emily, and the support crew watched intently as the underwater robots navigated the trench. The first hour revealed nothing but rock formations and marine life. Then, as one ROV rounded a jutting coral shelf, something metallic glinted in its lights. "There!" Robert's voice crackled through the comm system, Case moving in for a closer look. The ROV's camera focused on what appeared to be diving equipment wedged between rocks. James recognized the distinctive red markings immediately. It was Sarah's. "Preparing for recovery," Robert announced. "Team 2, maintain position while we—" He was interrupted by a series of urgent clicks and whistles. The marked Dolphin had appeared on the ROV's camera, swimming directly in front of it. "It's trying to lead us somewhere," Emily said, leaning closer to the screen. "Look at its behavior. It's the same pattern they used when they guided us to my research case." The Dolphin dove deeper, disappearing into a dark crevice. The ROV followed, its lights illuminating a narrow passage that opened into a larger chamber. What they saw next made everyone in the room gasp. The chamber was a natural cavern, and along its floor lay scattered pieces of what was clearly Sarah's final dive. Her camera housing, intact but empty. Research equipment bearing her name. And there, partially buried in the sand, a dive slate with clearly visible writing. "Can you get closer to the slate?" James asked, his voice tight with emotion. The ROV's mechanical arm carefully brushed away the sand, revealing Sarah's last written words. "Current too strong. Cave system larger than expected. If found, research in waterproof case explains everything. Jay, I was right about them. They're more than we ever imagined." James sank into a chair, overwhelmed. She found something. Something about the dolphins. That's why she was diving here. Emily was already pulling out her research notes. Sarah was studying dolphin intelligence too, wasn't she? Specifically, their ability to recognize and remember human individuals over long periods. Yes, James nodded. She had theories about their capacity for what she called generational memory, the ability to pass information down through pods over many years. "Mr. Harrison," Robert's voice came through again. "There's something else. The chamber continues beyond this point. And the dolphin? It's still trying to show us something." James looked at Emily, who was already nodding. "Follow it," they said in unison. The ROV ventured deeper into the chamber, guided by the marked Dolphin. The passage twisted and turned, until finally opening into another, smaller space. What they found there would change everything they thought they knew about Sarah's final dive, and the true nature of her research. The chamber contained a discovery that explained why the dolphins had spent 5 years trying to lead someone here. It wasn't just about finding Sarah's last resting place. It was about completing the work she had died trying to document. "Oh my God," Emily whispered, staring at the screen. She actually found it. The proof she was looking for. James leaned forward, his heart pounding, as he realized what they were seeing. Sarah's final discovery lay before them, preserved exactly as she had left it 5 years ago, waiting for someone to complete her work. The marked Dolphin swam into view once more, positioning itself next to the discovery as if to say, "This is what we've been trying to show you all along." The ROV's lights illuminated what appeared to be a natural stone formation within the underwater chamber, but upon closer inspection, it was clear this was what Sarah had been documenting in her final moments. Ancient markings worn into the rock face, along with something that made James's breath catch in his throat. Sarah's underwater research station, still intact. "It's a birthing sanctuary," Emily breathed, recognition dawning on her face. The markings on the walls, they're from decades of dolphins returning to this same spot, generation after generation. The marked Dolphin swam gracefully around the chamber, its movements almost reverent. Through the ROV's camera, they could see that the rock walls were smooth from years of dolphins brushing against them. The chamber was a perfect natural nursery, protected from strong currents and predators. "The waterproof case," James said suddenly, "the one Sarah mentioned in her note. Robert, can you see it?" The ROV's camera panned slowly around the chamber until it found what they were looking for, a bright yellow research case wedged securely in a natural rock shelf. The recovery team carefully retrieved it, bringing it to the surface while the marked Dolphin watched intently. When the case was finally opened aboard the yacht, James's hands trembled as he removed its contents. Inside were Sarah's research papers, preserved perfectly in their waterproof housing, along with several memory cards and a journal. The journal's final entry was dated the day she disappeared. "Final dive to document the nursery chamber." What we're seeing here is extraordinary. Physical evidence of dolphin culture being passed down through generations. The markings on the walls aren't random. They're teaching aids, created over decades as mothers show their calves how to navigate the chamber safely. This site proves that dolphins don't just remember, they actively preserve and pass on knowledge. Emily was reading over his shoulder, her excitement building. This explains everything. The marked dolphin, she was probably born in this chamber. That's why she keeps returning, why she remembers humans who come here. But why bring us the camera now? James asked. Why lead us here after 5 years? Before Emily could answer, Robert's voice crackled through the comm system again. Mr. Harrison, you need to see this. The dolphin is trying to show us something else. On the screen, they watched as the marked dolphin led the ROV to another part of the chamber. There, partially hidden behind a rock outcropping, was Sarah's final gift to science, her backup camera, sealed in its waterproof housing and carefully wedged into a crevice. When the camera was retrieved and its memory card reviewed, the images told an incredible story. Sarah had documented the chamber extensively, capturing incredible footage of dolphin mothers teaching their young. But it was the final video that brought tears to James's eyes. Sarah appeared on screen, recording herself in the chamber. James, if you're watching this, something's gone wrong. But what we've discovered here is too important to lose. These dolphins, they're not just intelligent, they're cultural beings. They preserve knowledge, pass it down, protect it. This chamber is their library, their school, their heritage site all in one. The video showed the marked dolphin as a calf, swimming with its mother. Sarah's voice continued. They've allowed me to document this place because they trust us to protect it. The markings on the walls, they're not just from contact. They're intentional. Each generation adds to them, creating a physical map that helps young dolphins learn the chamber's layout. Suddenly, Sarah's expression became urgent. The current's picking up. I need to surface soon, but I have to make sure this evidence is preserved. If anything happens to me, find this place. Protect it. They've trusted us with their secrets. We owe them that much. The video ended there. James sat in stunned silence, finally understanding. The marked dolphin hadn't just been trying to find Sarah. It had been protecting her discovery, waiting for the right person to return and complete her work. Emily touched his arm gently. Your sister's research, it changes everything we thought we knew about dolphin intelligence and culture. She proved they don't just have memories, they have traditions. They preserve knowledge physically, just like we do. And they recognized me, James realized. They knew I was her brother, that I would understand the importance of what she found. As if in response, the marked dolphin breached near the yacht, performing a series of clicks and whistles that seemed almost celebratory. Other members of the pod joined in, creating a symphony of sound that carried across the water. But there was still one more discovery to be made, one that would reveal the true depth of Sarah's connection to these remarkable creatures and provide James with the closure he'd been seeking for 5 years. In the early morning light, James stood at the bow of the Aurora Dream, watching Luna and her pod swimming gracefully through the calm waters. The past few days had been a whirlwind of discoveries, but something was still nagging at him, a detail in Sarah's research that seemed to hint at something more. Emily joined him, carrying Sarah's final journal. I've been reading through this all night, she said, her voice excited despite her obvious fatigue. James, I think I know why Sarah was so determined to dive in this specific location that day. She opened the journal to a page marked with a blue tab. Look at these notes. 3 days before her last dive, Sarah observed something extraordinary. The older dolphins were bringing objects to the memory cave, shells, distinctive pieces of coral, even smooth stones. They were teaching the younger ones to recognize these markers, like navigational aids, James asked, intrigued. More than that, Sarah believed they were using them as memory triggers, physical reminders of specific events or locations. And there's more. Emily flipped to another marked page. She found something in the cave system, something she thought could change our understanding of dolphin intelligence forever. Before she could elaborate, Robert approached with urgent news. Mr. Harrison, the ROV team found something while doing the final survey of the memory cave. You need to see this. In the yacht's control room, the screens showed live footage from the ROV. The camera focused on a small alcove within the memory cave, partially hidden behind a natural rock formation. There, Carefully arranged were dozens of objects, not just natural items like shells and coral, but man-made objects as well. Each one appeared to have been deliberately placed. "It's some kind of collection," Emily breathed, "like a museum." Among the objects, the ROV's lights caught something that made James's heart skip a beat, a diving weight belt with Sarah's initials clearly visible. But it wasn't damaged or haphazardly placed. It had been carefully arranged alongside other items, protected from the current. They didn't just find her equipment, James realized. They preserved it, added it to their collection. Emily nodded, her eyes wide with understanding. This is what Sarah discovered. She found evidence that dolphins don't just remember. They create physical monuments to their memories. They're preserving their history, just like we do. As they watched, Luna appeared on the screen, swimming gracefully through the cave. She approached the collection, gently touching the weight belt with her snout before turning to face the ROV's camera. "She's been protecting this place," Emily said softly, "and not just the birthing chamber, but this memorial they created. She's been waiting for someone to understand its significance." James felt tears forming in his eyes. Sarah would have understood. This is exactly what she was trying to prove, that dolphins have a complex cultural memory system, that they preserve and honor their past. The discovery sparked a flurry of activity. Marine biologists were contacted, conservation experts consulted. James used his resources to begin the process of establishing a protected marine sanctuary around the site. But there was still one piece of the puzzle left to solve. Late that night, as James reviewed more of Sarah's recovered research materials, he found a USB drive carefully sealed in a waterproof container. The files it contained were dated the day before her final dive. The first file was a video that started playing automatically. Sarah's face filled the screen, her eyes bright with excitement. "James, I'm recording this because what I've discovered is almost too incredible to believe. The dolphins aren't just using this cave system as a nursery, they're using it as a historical record. Each object they collect, each marking they make, tells a story. They're teaching their young not just how to survive, but about their past, their encounters with humans, their relationships with other pods." The video showed Sarah diving in the cave system, documenting the collections. Her voice continued in voiceover. "Luna's pod has been particularly fascinating. They seem to have a special connection to this area, a cultural memory that spans decades. The objects they collect aren't random. They're chosen specifically for their significance. I've seen them bring younger dolphins here, showing them each item, almost like they're telling stories." The video cut to footage of Luna as a calf, learning from older dolphins. Sarah's voice grew more excited. "What's most remarkable is how they're interacting with human objects. They're not just collecting them, they're preserving them, protecting them. It's as if they understand these items have significance beyond their physical presence. They're creating a shared history between our species." The final clip showed Sarah diving near the memory cave entrance. "Tomorrow, I'm going to document the full extent of their collection. If I'm right about what this means, it could revolutionize our understanding of dolphin intelligence and culture. James, if anything happens to me, find this place. Protect it. These creatures aren't just animals, they're historians, teachers, guardians of their own legacy." The video ended, but there were more files on the drive, detailed maps of the cave system, behavior logs, and photographs documenting the dolphins, collecting behavior. Sarah had created a comprehensive record of her discoveries, ensuring they wouldn't be lost. The next morning, James gathered the research team for an announcement. "We're not just going to protect this site," he declared. "We're going to establish a research center dedicated to understanding and documenting dolphin culture. Sarah's work will be the foundation, but this is just the beginning." Emily, who had been quiet all morning, spoke up. "There's something else we need to do first." She pointed to where Luna and her pod were swimming near the yacht. "They've been trying to show us something specific. I think they want to take us somewhere." James understood immediately. The pod had been swimming in a particular pattern all morning, moving between the yacht and a point about half a mile away. After consulting with the dive team and ensuring all safety protocols were in place, James and Emily prepared to follow. The dive was unlike anything they'd experienced. Luna led them through the water with deliberate care, her calf staying close by. Other members of the pod formed a protective circle around them as they swam. After about 15 minutes, they reached what appeared to be another cave entrance. Inside, guided by their lights and Luna's patient leadership, they found something that brought everything full circle. In a small protected alcove, carefully preserved by the current patterns, was Sarah's final gift, a complete backup of all her research, sealed in multiple waterproof containers. She had created a duplicate record of everything, ensuring her discoveries wouldn't be lost if something happened to her. But there was more. Among the containers was a personal letter to James, written the night before her final dive. "Dear James, if you're reading this, something has happened to me, but please don't mourn too long. What I've discovered here is bigger than any one person. These incredible creatures have shown me that memory isn't just about preserving the past. It's about teaching future generations, about building bridges between species. Luna and her pod have taught me more about intelligence, culture, and memory than years of academic research ever could. They don't just remember, they honor, they teach, they preserve. Their system of passing down knowledge might be different from ours, but it's no less sophisticated. I've left everything you need to continue this work. The coordinates, the research, the evidence, it's all here. But more importantly, you have Luna. She understands the importance of this place, of what we're trying to do. Trust her. Learn from her. Let her show you what I've seen. Remember me not with sadness, but by continuing this work. Help protect these remarkable creatures and their cultural heritage. Help others understand what I've learned, that intelligence and culture take many forms, and that sometimes the greatest discoveries come from simply being patient enough to listen and observe. All my love, Sarah." Reading his sister's final words, James felt a profound sense of peace settle over him. Sarah hadn't just made a scientific discovery. She'd built a bridge between species, a bridge that Luna and her pod had maintained for 5 years, waiting for the right moment to share their secret. In the months that followed, the site was officially designated as a marine sanctuary. The Sarah Harrison Marine Research Center was established nearby, dedicated to studying and protecting dolphin culture and behavior. Scientists from around the world came to study what Sarah had discovered, building on her work and expanding our understanding of dolphin intelligence. Luna and her pod remained regular visitors, continuing to add to their collection in the memory cave, teaching their young and occasionally bringing new objects to the surface. Gifts for the humans who now helped protect their home. 1 year after the discovery, James stood on the deck of the research center, watching Luna swim with her now growing calf. Emily, who had become the center's lead researcher, joined him. "You know what today is?" she asked softly. James nodded. "The anniversary of when Luna brought us your camera." "She knew exactly what she was doing," Emily said. "So she wasn't just trying to save me. She was fulfilling a promise to Sarah, waiting for the right moment to reveal everything they'd shared." As if in response, Luna breached the water, performing a graceful arc before splashing back down. Her calf followed, mimicking the movement perfectly. James smiled, remembering Sarah's words about memory, teaching, and the bridges between species. In the end, Sarah's greatest discovery wasn't just about dolphin intelligence or cultural memory. It was about the connections we forge, the stories we preserve, and the understanding that can develop between species when we take the time to listen and observe. Through Luna and her pod, Sarah's legacy lived on, not just in scientific papers and research data, but in the daily interactions between humans and dolphins at the sanctuary she had given her life to discover. The marked dolphin and her growing family continued to add to their collection in the memory cave, now helped by researchers who documented and protected their cultural heritage. And every so often, when the waters were calm and the light was just right, visitors to the sanctuary would see Luna leading her pod in what looked like a dance, their movements telling stories that bridged the gap between their world and ours, stories of memory, of culture, and of the enduring bonds that can form between species when we open our hearts to understanding. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the world of captivating stories. I trust you found today's narrative as engaging as I did. If you enjoyed this exploration into fascinating and compelling narratives, kindly indicate your appreciation by liking this video. Are you watching on mobile? Show your appreciation with a double tap for hype. For more captivating stories and journeys into the heart of compelling storytelling, please subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you don't miss a single upload. Your thoughts and interpretations are most welcome. Please share your perspectives on today's story in the comments below. And if you believe others would find this content engaging, please consider sharing the video with your network. Until our next journey into the world of captivating tales, I bid you farewell.